Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
If you want to lead well, you need to focus on building people, then building profits and processes that are going to outlive you. Otherwise, you're not going to have a generational impact. You're going to be one and done, flash in the pan. You might get your own glory, but that's it. That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Master the Story Power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. You know, the truth is, every leader leaves a generational impact. Every leader has a ripple effect. Every leader that influences people will leave something behind. And the something they leave behind will be determined by whether they're intentional about it or they're not intentional about it. If they're intentional about it, it's either going to be malicious or it's going to be beneficial. But their intentionality is going to be determined by their own character. And the sad challenge is, the sad reality is, way too many leaders, they're not thinking about what's next. They're not thinking about people at all. They're thinking about padding their own pocketbook, having their own influence, leading or leaving what's behind farthest thing from their mind. Their imagination says, I want to be able to get my bank now, drive the right car, live in the right house, influence the right people, hang out at the right parties, do the things that make me happy. And it's only later in life that they decide, maybe I should have built this thing so I could hand it off to somebody else, or I should have built this thing in such a way that other people would say, can I carry on your legacy? I want to continue to do what you're doing because it's had such incredible impact. When we don't think that way up front, those results don't come. See, generational impact demands something of us today. It's kind of like when I said in previous episodes that the ability to be resilient, that resilience muscle, it doesn't start all by itself. It starts deep inside your own internal conversation. It starts when you decided that this is where I want to go with this. I've got a plan. I've got a long-term plan. I've got my intentional plan set out. But it's deep inside of you, your own core values, your own message, your own intentional. And if you haven't started with you, then what you pass on, what you leave behind, nobody wants it. It also starts with you being the kind of person people want to follow. You can't just speak the words that are empty and vain and hollow these motivational TikTok type promotions. That's not going to cut it. I mean, everybody knows now that half the images we see on social media, they're fake. I mean, if they're not AI generated, they're so filtered, they're so regenerated that there's nothing there that looks like this is what I want it to be. There's nothing there that looks like the real you. And that challenge with generational impact, with being able to say what I've built, the things that I've written, the things that I've read, the things that I've said, the people I've listened to, the people that I've poured into, the ones that I've mentored and the ones that I've coached, the ones that I've helped to promote, discovered their potential and pointed them in the right direction. Those people will forget me like yesterday's cold coffee. Right down the drain. Why? Well, because I didn't invest in them for them. I didn't build something for them, for the next generation. I built something for me. I maybe even lazily used them to build me. I wasn't building me to serve anybody else. I wasn't building me to help the next generation. I wasn't building me to build them up. I was building me for my own benefit. See, that's a totally different thing than saying I'm going to get better at being me. I'm going to get better at being the kind of father, the kind of husband, the kind of business leader, the kind of writer, entrepreneur, minister, whatever it is you want to say. I'm going to be better at that thing because that's my calling and that's my job. And as I get better at that thing, everybody around me benefits from that. Why? Because every leader leaves a ripple. Will that ripple be positive or negative? That's up to you. And whether or not you intentionally leave a positive ripple or you intentionally leave a negative one. Yes, there are people who sociopaths, psychopaths, that they just want to know that they got their 15 minutes of fame and they don't care who they have to hurt along the way to get that fame. That's not what we're looking for in the realm of leadership that I want to influence you to. I want to influence you to build the kind of ripple that when you're gone 3, 5, 10, 25 years from now, 25 generations from now, your name's still being quoted for the good that you brought into somebody's life. Somebody picks up a book off the shelf that you wrote 75 years ago and they go, now that's some good thinking. Seeing young Washington, one of the things that the aristocrats required, obviously there was a little bit of, payola required to be an officer in the king's army, but beyond that, they required that you speak a certain way, that you have a certain diction about you, that you have a performative way of thinking, that your thoughts and your progress and your progressive thinking was consistent with everybody else's. Well, how do you do that? You got to read the same books. You got to study the same people. You got to follow the same history. You got to be willing to submit yourself to these ideas, these philosophies that everybody else has subscribed to. Now, whether or not they're yours original, or they're just the ones that everybody else has subscribed to, could make the difference between whether you succeed or not. There are some brilliant thinkers that are from the last generation or several back. You hear me quote Dale Carnegie and John Maxwell all the time. Well, John Maxwell's still with us. He's 20-something-ish years older than I am, but just barely a generation ahead of me. I mean, I guess he could have been my dad, but it's close. That Dale Carnegie quote, though, that's 100 plus years old. When you're looking back at people like that, whose wisdom, whose knowledge, whose ability to articulate, whose ability to transform the thoughts of people didn't just work in his day. It wasn't a social media meme that later he had to take down because he regretted what he said. It's not like that. It's the kind of truth that permeates time, the kind of value that one leader pours into another one. And people look at that and go, yeah, like that. I want some of that. I want to be that kind of person. I want to raise myself up to be a better leader. I want to lift my lid. I want to improve my communication skills, my people skills. Now, there's a balance in there. There's a place where you want to go along to get along to go along. If you want to move further up, you've got to be friendly to people. And there's a place where you've got to submit yourself to the structure of the authority because, well, frankly, being a rogue doesn't always pay off. And sometimes being a rogue is the most dangerous thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for the people you lead. You may lead them into a place where you don't have the ability to protect them or to lead them anymore. You've done all that you can do and you're pretty much there. See, the challenge for many leaders is deciding right now where I'm at. Am I living with knowledge, wisdom, influences that are going to last maybe till I die, and then they don't even apply anymore? I think back to the people, I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but there have been some platforms, both social media platforms and tools that various people use in the way of promotion and growing their business and growing their entrepreneur. And some of these were brilliant for about 6 months. And some of them, for lack of a better term, have stood the test of time. It seems ironic to say that Meta has stood the test of time when it's only been around less than 20 years. I mean, there was a season that Meta wasn't old enough to drive, but it was worth billions and impacting everything from elections to societies the globe over. Led by a leader who wasn't having kids yet. That's a pretty significant statement. But see, if you contrast the kind of information, if you will, that you get from Meta, from Instagram, from TikTok. Again, I'm not picking on a particular platform or social media. I'm just saying that information very much is fly by night. It's here today and gone tomorrow. It's a different notion 6 months from now. That's why the impact of what they call the Wayback Machine is so profound. When you put something out there and 10 years from now, people can go back to it. Many people grow up in the social media age and they think, oh, well, that was yesterday's news. That was like a Snapchat. It just deleted itself and it's gone. No, not necessarily. And in case you're curious, now that we've grown up in this media age with, holding our phones up and recording everything we do. I was recently reading an article about a man who heard someone screaming outside his home. He came outside to find a 15-year-old girl being accosted in the street by a grown man who was trying to take advantage of her in horrible ways. So the man found his own security devices, his wireless hole puncher, and went outside with it and said, "Get gone, or you're not going to be able to go home at all." And the girl who's being accosted said, "I'm 15. Help me. I can't do anything myself." And so he brought her in, made her safe, called 911. All of life was good. Take that same scenario, and instead of having a 50, 60-year-old middle school teacher who was the person that responded to this event, you have a bunch of 20-somethings. And rather than defending the person being attacked, they're more likely to grab their device and make a video. Because what they want right now is not necessarily generational impact. They want the fame and the fortune now. They want the views now. They want the pictures on Instagram now. They want to go viral now. Because they know now is all that you can count, because what comes later, I may not even be here to see. It's not untrue. It's just not a very productive way to look at life. But there's a whole lot of life to be lived in a way that I'm benefiting the people around me. I'm making their life better by making me better. And everything that I do to up my level, to raise my lid, makes me a potential better leader for them. Not just to get the views and the clicks and the paycheck, if you will, that comes from all the views and the clicks, but to actually invest in them, to help them to become better people. That's what a generational impact looks like. Again, every leader will leave a ripple. Every leader will have a ripple effect. But will it be intentional or will it not be? Will it be because you did something phenomenal on purpose or because you lucked into it? I mean, there are a lot of people who have formulas for good social media views, traffic counts, eyeballs, virality. If you just follow this formula, every video you do will be viral. Look, they've sold the formula so many times now that the viral videos created by this formula are competing with each other. They're no longer stand out. They're not doing anything differently. But I can tell you that a leader who's so focused on getting attention right now, getting the eyeballs right now, getting the paycheck right now, they're going to be obsolete very soon. I mean, unfortunately, a news story as radical as the one of the man who saved the 15-year-old girl from a fate, in some people's words, worse than death. Even that news story, it'll be forgotten about in 24, 48 hours. Is that generational impact? No, not really. I mean, what he did potentially saved her life. Maybe she becomes a mom and tells the story to her kids. Hey, there was a day when this could have been my end, but for this guy. Maybe something like that happens and that story becomes a legacy. It begins to carry itself on to the next generation or 2 or 3 or 4. That'd be awesome. But it was his core values. It was his intentionality. It was his intent to produce, to provide, to help. Now, An interesting caveat to that news story. If you've seen any of the pictures on social media, they're all blurred out. Because for whatever reason, the hero in the story did so in his birthday suit. Came out the door with a wireless hole punch and no drawers. There's a whole lot of questions that come to mind for me, and I'm thinking, what in the world was he doing? Was he in the shower? Was he getting dressed? He ran for his hole punch before he ran for his underwear? Not me. I'm at least going to be dressed. But then I can't imagine all of the conjecture of questions that comes up when a grown man in his birthday suit is embracing a 15-year-old girl in the street. That photo could unintentionally become fodder for all kinds of memes. I'm just saying. You got to be intentional. You got to think through that process. You got to be way ahead of yourself. But if he wasn't at least prepared to use the hole puncher, at least prepared enough to go back and get it, at least enough prepared to say, I will help someone in need even at potential risk of my own peril. If that wasn't his nature, his character, his core values already, the odds that the positive side, the positive potential upside of that encounter even happening, zero. We just got to look at the norm in society today. How many videos just like that do we have? There's another one floating around from this weekend where I guess they were trying to quell a mob that was a little out of control, maybe behaving ways that they shouldn't have been. But 5 or 6 young people decided to attack a female police officer. They were getting the better of her in a bad way until other law enforcement officers showed up and said, no, not on my watch. We're going to have to stop this nonsense. Y'all going to leave. The sad thing is, several of the perpetrators who were throwing the blows and creating the havoc, they escaped in the mayhem. I think 2 or 3 of them got tackled and put in cuffs. And part of this generational impact question that I want you to stop and think about is, if you were the parents of those teens behaving like that, what have you invested in them that makes them feel like, A, I can do this and get away with it, and B, it's a good idea. It's one thing to think that I can commit a crime and get away with it, and so, if I commit a crime and I get away with it, lucky me. It's another thing to think, I'm going to intentionally commit a crime because I'm confident I'm going to get away with it. And it's a whole nother thing to think crime is what I'm supposed to do. You can't catch me anyway. Catch Me If You Can. That was an interesting movie about a guy who was basically a career professional criminal who ended up serving law enforcement in his later days. He became a consultant to point out the criminal behavior before the criminals actually behaved. We have cameras doing that now, right? I mean, handheld social media devices as well as the ones on the poles. If you are not intentional about the path that you're following, because you're intentional about the legacy you intend to leave, if you are just going through your life and you're thinking the next pay raise, the next blip, the next viral video, the next paycheck for whatever, that's what I live for. If that's what you're living your life for, understand that all of your success evaporates when you do. That's just the way it's going to be. And if you're okay with that, I'm probably not going to change your mind anytime in the next few minutes. But I can tell you that even people as wealthy and influential as, say, Peter Thiel, recently decided, I need to build a family. I need not just to build this empire, to have all this money, to have all this income, to have all this influence. I need to have somebody I can leave this to, because otherwise when I'm gone, they just, break open the toy box and split up the toys. pretty fascinating, really, when you think about the number of people who have built today's life around today's life. And that's it. They're not looking to add anything else. If they get their fame now, give me my 15 minutes, give me the paycheck that goes along with it, give me the notoriety. If I can build a little retirement account, a nest egg, get enough money in the bank, as Joe Rogan says, why have FU money if you never get to say FU? Have enough money to be able to say FU if you want to, whether that's the daytime job or it's the world of politics or it's the system we live in. Whatever it is that you consider freedom. That's one level of success. Frankly, I want to be the kind of guy that, like Dale Carnegie, 100 years from now, they're still saying my name and sharing my ideas because they're not only good for me, they're good for the people that I lead right now, to help them live a more excellent life, to perform, to invest, to be a return on investment for somebody else, but also to be the ones that their kids and their grandchildren and their grandchildren's grandchildren look back to things that I've written, things that I've said, things that I've recorded right here in the studio and say, that shapes the way I think. I want that. See, with the Young Washington film, they pointed out that there were probably a handful, 5 or 6 books. Civility was one of those. Cato's writings on the great plays was one of those. How do you treat the lords and ladies, the aristocrats? I have a fascinating book that was written by one of the United States' early Supreme Court justices. Not everybody was a fan of him. He had some really weird ideas. But in his book, The Aristocrat at the Table, written in the early 1900s, in this book, he talks about how everyone had that someone in their life that was like their AI, their Gemini, their Claude, their Google. That if they didn't know something, but they needed to know, they turned to this person. This person may not have the greatest social skills, but they had the knowledge. They had the database. Back in the day before there was such a thing as Google, I know, who thinks that there was never a Google? I grew up in a day without a Google. I grew up in the day where my mother would look at me and go, you can't spell the word? Look it up. If I knew how to look it up, I know how to spell it. That's how you're going to find it. Because sometimes you got to follow those rules of phonics that make no sense. Knock, is that N-O-K? N-O-C-K? No, it's got a K in front of it. The K is silent. So don't look up knock in the dictionary under N. It's not there. But see, I also watch the young people today who are getting interviewed on the beach. I mean, they look fit. They look like they've all got it together. They've got their coolers and they're having a great time. And somebody walks up and sticks a mic in their face and they're like, so, what was the 4th of July all about? And they look at each other like, beer on the beach, right? That hasn't always been a trick question. There have been people whose job it was to research, to write down, to hold on to that knowledge so that that knowledge could be generational in its impact. I hope that the stuff that I create, the stuff that I think about, the original thoughts that I think, the books that I write, the videos that I create, that somebody one day will look back on those and go, that was a pretty good thought. That was an original thought. I've never put 2 and 2 together quite that way. And if you, as a leader, want to lead a generational impact, you're going to have the same kind of commitment. But you also have to have a vision. See, the idea that you're going to leave a generational impact, the first step in that is getting beyond yourself. A generational impact is not about you. It's not about me. It's about me asking the question, what can I leave behind to benefit the next generation and the one after that? How can I invest in them? What I've learned, like the aristocrat at the table who has that backup data guy. Can I be that backup data guy to somebody else? Can I be the one that has that information when everybody's looking for it? I mean, expertise is becoming a thing of the past because you can't compete with AI. But the ability to articulate that data, to read humans, to apply human empathy and EQ and IQ together, that's a different thing. And that's what looks like generational impact in its incubator. As it grows, that generational impact becomes those old books that sit on the shelf for 150 years, for 200 years. I have books on my shelf that were written in the 1800s. They've been around for close to 200 years already. Why? Because the things that they thought, the words that they spoke, the ideas that they shared still work today. I want to lead that kind of generational impact, and I'm challenging you to do the same thing. Begin to craft a vision for what will your knowledge, wisdom, influence look like 100 years from now. And then execute. Execute on that vision. Stay committed to that vision. Whether it pays off today or not, you have a chance, a right, an obligation to leave a legacy if you're a leader. Get started today. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
This 6 weeks guided program is specifically designed for those people who say, I know I need to tell stories. I need to tell better stories because the ones I have are boring or they're not getting across. Or as John Maxwell says, everyone communicates and, well, few connect. Now, as a participant in this course, what I would really love to know from you, put it in the discussion on the course if you're already registered online. Send me a chat, send me a DM, send me a text, send me an email. I'd really love to know what you hope to get out of this course. Now, I can tell you what we're going to discuss, and I can tell you what I plan to teach and train you on, and I can tell you even what we plan to discuss each week on the calls for the next 6 weeks. I'm going to go over all of that for you in just a moment. I can also tell you that my clients who get the greatest success are the ones who apply the Story Power process to their business development to increase their impact, their influence, and their income. Now, the Story Power process includes story mining, story selection, story qualification, story crafting, connecting with your audience, and leading the narrative. And if you leave any one of those parts out, you're going to find that, well, you're just not as effective as you want to be. You're not going to grow your business to the same level. You're not going to lead with impact and influence like you hope to. I can also tell you that the people who apply these things, well, they're not failing in their business. The reason a lot of people fail in their business is they continue to fail to connect the solution they offer with the problem that their clients have. The pain and the solution never come together. And a lot of that failure is because they're not clearly articulating how their solution solves someone else's problem. It comes down to a question something like this. Who do you help and how? Yes, that's one of the first things we're going to discuss over the next 6 weeks of Boost Your Business with Story Power.
Master the Story Power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library.